Hey everybody, it's Nate from Voidmaster here to tell you about Coven, our new album coming out April 1st. We're pretty goddamn excited to get it to you guys. We're pretty goddamn excited for you guys to hear the new single Mana Burner, which comes out February 11th. Take it easy.
Geoff Saavedra, the Titanosaur. What's happening?
Hey, man. Not much.
I'm happy to have you on, man. Your album, I think, will be out at the time this airs. Absence of Universe. So congrats on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I saw you posted today on Twitter something about doing lots of interviews for this album. Been busy promoting it and whatnot.
Doing the promo blitz. Just doing my job, getting the word out.
Do you like doing that kind of stuff? Doing your own marketing and stuff? You're a one-man band, right? I mean, so you got to kind of just do everything.
Yeah, I got to do it all. I like talking. I like talking about myself. I like talking about the music. So I like this part of it. Yeah. The organizing stuff, that's a hassle. But
yeah, I feel like I don't feel like I'm a control freak, but I've learned over the years that like I'd rather just take control of stuff and do it. I'd rather do it myself, you know? So like, especially being in a one person band, you kind of can have control over all the instruments, the art, the sound, the promotion, the marketing, everything. I mean, I think that's how I would do it.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely have control over all that stuff, but it's helpful and to have outside ears, and it also gets kind of lonely.
Yeah. So, tell me about Titanosaur. I know you have another band that you had been in or started, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, I think. But tell me about Titanosaur, how this project started. Was it always a one-person thing, or was it recording in your room? Like, where was the start of all this?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, I've never been able to figure out if I should call it a project or a band. Yeah, so I was in the Ray Gun Girls. I was doing the Ray Gun Girls since 2004. And that's sort of a goth industrial kind of dark type of thing. But and I love making that kind of music, but I also love punk and metal and I guess what we call now stoner metal, stoner rock. I love that kind of music, but couldn't make that with the Ray Gun Girls. And I had this slew of songs that I had recorded on my own. So I finally decided at the end of 2017 to just do something separate. And that's what became Titanosaur. As far as coming up with an actual figurehead, that I brainstorm with my kids all the time, and they help me find the name Titanosaur. They help me put lots of stuff together. But I wanted something that gave the feeling of stomping, loud, big, crushing. And the name Titanosaur was perfect. So.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool name, and I have a little boy. He's 3, so I'm right there in that dinosaur world right now. We're watching lots of dinosaur stuff on TV and movies and toys and everything. So I'm into it.
Yeah, I don't think people grow out of that though.
Yeah,
I mean, when I was trying to look for a name, I figured, okay, dinosaur, big, crushing, and almost every cool dinosaur name is already taken by a band. So it just so happened that they had just recently discovered the Titanosaur, and so there was a documentary about it. So I remembered that, and I thought that sounded great. So
yeah, it's a relatively new project. Then you said 17 is kind of when you started. I know that you put out an album. Eat Me was 18. It must have been shortly after. But that's a lot of work in just a short amount of time. You've had this is like your 4th album. I think there's an EP and stuff in there. And
yeah,
it seems to be the trend for a lot of these one-man bands. Of the people that I've had on this show, there's been several one-person projects, and they all have just incredible output. And that seems so backwards to me. You'd think that if you have 4 minds together, you just be putting out great stuff. One person would be a struggle, but it's the complete opposite. It must just be no one's telling you not to do something or something, and you just keep pushing stuff out.
Well, yeah, when you got more people, you've got to teach everybody the parts, and you've got to sort of all agree on the parts, and then practice them until they all sound like the way you wanted them to, or the way they want. It does take a lot longer.
Yeah.
But like for me, I don't play live. I can't play live. I have a heart condition, and that's why I stopped playing with the Ray Gun Girls live back in 2009. So this is the only way I got to spread the music, is by recording it. So yeah, about once a year I come up with a full album kind of deal. Yeah, it was only an EP last year because in 2020 I released the album Messages in December, and I was using that to try to get signed to a label. So I spent a few months at the beginning of 2021 choosing with going back and forth with some labels, and then I ended up with the Swamp Records. So I wanted to put something out with them as soon as possible, so that's why I had an EP. And I think that was a good choice. I was introduced to their audience, and that's been working out really well. And now I got this album ready to put out.
Right on. Yeah, again, a few of those solo projects have come from the Swamp Records too. He must put out a lot of those kind of projects.
Yeah.
So the first album that I listened to a few days ago was Eat Me. I wanted to go back and kind of start from the beginning, and I listened to Eat Me. And like it started off like there was like maybe a little bit more like thrashy of songs on there, but I mean it sounds like you, and there hasn't been that much time that has passed. But how do you think that your sound has changed over these 4 or 5 albums into this one? Like, have you changed your own personal taste? Have you changed how you played? Have you changed the messaging? Anything?
Yeah, well, the first album, that was really just like me throwing up tons of ideas and music, because I was trying to control myself with the Ray Gun Girls. So this was just like a kind of so like the very last song, Give Me More, something like that. That was just being completely silly and idiotic, which I wasn't allowing myself to do with the Ray Gun Girls. But the second album was more of a concept album, and to me, really complicated. I have no idea how to play a lot of those songs anymore, which is why I don't really play them. And then the Messages, I think, was when I really solidified what I was trying to do, or what I am trying to do with Titanosaur, as far as the direction, with the sound, and then the EP really started going forward more with the more of the grooves, more of the rhythm, and the Latin percussion. I'm really trying to bring that in, and that's carried over into this album. So yeah, I feel like I keep I feel like I keep growing, and I would like to keep growing as I go. So I think that's been the projection of the band so far.
Mm-hmm. On that first album, Punk Rock Dad was definitely, it sounded a little different than some of the other music, and definitely sounds different than the stuff that you're playing now.
Yeah.
But it made me just kind of laugh and smile, because like I said, I am a dad. I have 2 kids. But I wanted to ask you kind of how humor has been incorporated into this project, because the music isn't necessarily like goofy,
Right?
Maybe with the exception of Punk Rock Dad, if anything. But the imagery, the album covers, the music videos and stuff, like there's definitely like this humor to it. So how important is humor to Titanosaur? And is it just a big part of you, and you wanted to get that out through the music, or where did that come from?
Yeah, exactly. It's a big part of me. I love humor. I love to laugh. And yeah, with the Ray Gun Girls, I never felt like I could find a place to inject that. And with Titanosaur, yeah, the first album has a lot of humorous stuff on it. And then I sort of got serious with the lyrics afterwards. But I'm able to, through the videos, yeah, be more humorous. And I started on TikTok, and I've been doing this, or I was doing for a while, this Titano Tuesday thing with Titano, doing a little thing on dinosaurs. I try to interject as much humor as I can outside of the album, so that it feels like uh, a more complete picture of Titanosaur rather than just angry and sludgy or funny.
Right. When you're not playing music live, there has to be something else to keep in front of people and to give people to hold on to and watch and enjoy and stuff like that. So I feel like that is like this extra like level to Titanosaur a little bit that, you can have fun figuring out, what you're going to do next, or, how are you going to incorporate metal and dinosaurs and stuff, and how are you going to stay in front of people on Instagram or TikTok or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty much what it's about now is trying to come up with ideas to stay in front of people's minds. Yeah. And humor works a lot better than bashing somebody over the head with serious stuff all the time. So
Yeah. And like I said, it's not that your music's not like it's not like goofy material or anything like that, but obviously a big part of what Slightly Fuzzed does is supposed to be funny. I mean, it's supposed to be like a fun crack at like stoner music and stuff, like
yeah.
and I think that heavy metal has kind of taken itself really seriously for a long time, with some goofballs and here and there and stuff like that. But it's nice to kind of see this, lighter side of people. And I think social media probably has something to do with that, where you see this other side of people where you didn't in the 70s and 80s. You just saw like the rock star on stage or whatever. So people kind of have to be more open with, what they're actually about, and not just put on this like facade of whatever. So, it's been interesting to see like how goofy people are, or how nerdy people are, or, if they can take themselves a little lighter, if they can take their music a little lighter and stuff like that, and seeing, what people come up with to promote themselves or talk about or whatever.
Well, that's like going back to the 80s and 90s. That's one of the things that I loved about Anthrax. I like the music, but also I love the fact that they were loose. They were having fun. It wasn't like Iron Maiden is like on stage like we're here to melt your faces off kind of thing.
Right.
So
yeah. And so I mean, we talked about that in our messages a little bit, was like the influence of New York and stuff to you, being from Queens, I think you said.
Yeah.
So, to me, like the big four, just because you brought up Anthrax, like I always liked that Metallica, it was serious, and they're like these big, strong rock stars, and it's about death and war, and it's very serious. But I mean, there's definitely that more goofy edge to Anthrax of any of those big four for sure. And what is that influence on you? Whether it's Anthrax or Beastie Boys or whoever else that was an influence in this music.
Well, Ramones is a huge influence, and they're from Forest Hills, or they were. One of the first punk records that I heard was Ramones "Leave Home," and I lived in a house with my grandmother, my uncles. My mom was a single mom, and I would raid their record collection and play it on my little dinky toy record player, which pissed them off a lot, but that's how I got to introduce to so much music. And yeah, the Ramones "Leave Home," that was like, they were short, quick songs. They were silly, catchy. I loved it. At like 6, 7 years old. So, and then I found out, when I was about 10 or 12, that they were from Queens. And then around 14, they were warming up CJ, because Dee Dee had left the band. They were warming him up to go on shows, to do shows, and they just happened to pick the gymnasium across the street from where I lived to do the show. So I got to see them. That was my first concert, which was like, wow. That's where I learned how to slam dance and mosh and all that stuff. Fantastic.
Ramones is one of those, sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah.
Ramones is one of those bands that, like, I didn't grow up in that era, and it's kind of like they become this band that's just become like bigger than themselves, really. So like there's like this like myth about them, or this like I don't know, this thing that it's almost like I don't know anything about them almost because they've just become so like much of like a figurehead of like punk rock and early stuff like that. That like it almost seems like it didn't even actually happen. Like it almost just seems like it's not even real. And then talking to people like you, that you're like, oh, I went and saw him. It was one of my earliest concerts. It's just always kind of blows my mind. They're just one of those bands where I'm like, holy shit, you saw the Ramones? Like that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well,
Even though it wasn't really that long ago, you know?
no, it wasn't. But even for me, it feels almost like a dream because they stopped playing, and then like a few years after that, they started dying. But yeah, I saw them like 3 times
Wow.
live. They were one of the best bands ever to see live. They just went from one song to the other. They play like 30 songs in a 1 hour set.
Yeah.
When it's stoner metal, you can maybe get 5 songs in a 1 hour set.
Yeah. Yeah,
With
maybe.
these 10 minute long songs. Yeah, so their stage show also really influenced me a lot. And I actually worked for them for a little bit, and I interviewed Johnny once.
Wow.
So I learned a lot from them in how to put on a live show. Playing to the crowd, definitely it's about the audience. That's why Johnny never understood why some guitarists turn to the drummer. If the audience is out in front and you're playing for them, you got to be facing them, and they would coordinate themselves, the CJ or Didi and him walking up or walking back. They planned all that out because they wanted to put on a show for the audience. So things like that, really important stuff to learn when you're playing live.
I was just watching the movie called, I think it's just called CBGBs. Have you seen that?
Maybe I've seen a
I
lot of
forget.
stuff.
There's a well-known actor as like the main role, and it's about like the guy. Now I can't believe I'm fucking forgetting his name, but the guy that started CBGBs.
Hill, something Hill.
Yeah, shit, I should look it up. But anyway, they were talking in the movie. It's like a kind of a history of CBGBs, and it's just like to see that the Ramones were playing there at the same time as like the Police and like Blondie and all these bands. And I just like, I don't know. It's hard to believe that they all existed at the same time. And maybe that sounds dumb, but like just watching that movie, I was like, wait, what? All these bands that just came to the same place at the same time, and they were like nobodies at the time. And seeing the Ramones like up on that small stage, shitty little stage, and like fighting with each other and like just trying to figure it out. It's like one of their first gigs or whatever, and it was just wild.
Oh yeah, it's great stuff to to watch them and realize how they learned all their stuff as they went. But yeah, the 70s, punk was Blondie, punk was Talking Heads, and punk was the Ramones. It was only a little after that it started to really become like punk is Sex Pistols and Ramones and Clash, and Blondie is more new wave kind of stuff. So
Yeah, there was a couple other bands too, like you said, the Talking Heads and stuff, which I would never like put in the same talk as like the Ramones necessarily, but it was like they're coming through that same venue. So you said that you worked with the Ramones and interviewed them. What was that like?
Well, yeah, I worked with their publicity person for a short while I was in college. So I got to write some of their bios when they were promoting their album Adios Amigos, their last album. Yeah, so I didn't really get to meet them, but then I did interview Johnny, and that was pretty crazy for me as a big fan. Um, he's a really quiet guy, and they're all great guys to talk to and meet. But yeah, Johnny was a really quiet guy, and he had a lot of answers. I mean, from what I've read, and what I've learned about them is Johnny was the more conservative guy, and Joey was more the liberal guy. So they had issues with that. But yeah, I don't know. That's about all I remember. I mean, yeah, it was an interview, so I asked questions. He gave me answers.
Yeah. So you mentioned a few other bands when we were speaking through Instagram out of Queens and stuff. Like Kiss, maybe, I think. Like, were these bands that were just growing up as a kid, you went and saw influence your like love of rock and roll? Like, when did you start getting into this stuff? You said pretty early, 6 or something.
Yeah. So Kiss, I was of that generation that found Kiss through TV when they started playing to the kids, kind of
Oh,
thing.
okay.
So I was that generation where we went, got the makeup for Halloween and dressed up as the Star Child or as the demon.
Yeah.
Me and my friend George, who ended up playing bass, he's like a brother to me, and he played bass with the Reagan Girls for a while. We would dress up as Kiss and jump around his living room listening to the records, Kiss Alive, of course. So yeah, Kiss is a big influence. Not just because they're from Queens, but just because it's Kiss. But yeah, it just happens that they're from Queens. And then you got Beastie Boys, Run DMC, Prong is also from Queens. I don't know. There's something about Queens that you get a lot of good hard stuff from there. I don't know.
I come from such a small town in Illinois that there was no concerts around me ever until I was in like high school. So like my selection of music to be influenced by was nothing, and if anything, it started super late. So like when I went to college, it was closer to Chicago. Having like this selection of venues in Chicago to go to whenever, it blew my mind. But like growing up in New York, I mean, you're just in it. Were you going to a lot of shows from an early age, or was it just too dangerous or too far of a cab ride, or how what was going to shows like as a kid?
So the part of Queens that I lived in was Queens Village, which is right on the border of Long Island, and that's about, if you take the train, it's about an hour and a half to Manhattan. If you take a car, it's about 20 minutes. It's that kind of disparity there. But I mean, there were local venues kind of thing, but for me, because of being moved around by my mom, I didn't really get to experience much of that. So I saw the Ramones in a super small venue. And then right after that, like a week later, I saw Pink Floyd on the Delicate Sound of Thunder tour at Madison Square Garden, or what's the other place? But yeah, there's a lot of places in Manhattan for big bands and small bands, big giant venues, small venues. There was a lot of choice back then. In the mid 2000s, a lot of the small places started closing up. Like with the Reagan Girls, we were playing out, and right at the end of when venues started closing down, so it got a lot harder to play for anybody to see smaller bands, except unless you were all the way out on Long Island, which was a big trek in and of itself. But yeah, part of the fun of getting to some shows was the danger in it.
Right.
I remember going to see Sepultura in Brooklyn with my friend, and you had to take like 4 trains, go from Queens to Manhattan, then to Brooklyn, and you go to this. It was at L'Amour's, and L'Amour's is like on a side street. So you get off the train, walk over there, and then at 2 a.m, hope that you can find a train to get back home because some of the trains stop. So that was really rough getting home, but it was an adventure, absolutely.
So at what point did the Ray Gun Girls start, and how did you get into that? Was this music that you were into and playing at that time, and your taste just kind of like got away from that later, or you said it was kind of industrial?
Yeah. So it was almost the same situation as I had with the Reagan Girls and Titanosaur, but in reverse. I was in a heavy metal band.
Okay.
With a friend of mine, and the other guys in the band were kind of dragging it down, and we were getting kind of bored. It's like things were taking way too long. And my other friend, he was very much about learning how to make a home studio, and this was in the early 2000s, late 90s. Learning how to record at home. He's
That seems
very
like
much.
such a bigger undertaking at that time.
Oh
People
yeah,
are
it
doing it
was.
now everywhere. Everyone's doing it now, but like
Yeah,
at that time, it probably was like a huge undertaking.
yeah. Pro Tools was just starting to get into the homes at that time, and he ended up taking a loan out from his dad and bought Pro Tools and bought a big soundboard because he had this whole
Wow.
idea of doing a home studio and record bands and stuff. So he and I were sort of on the same page as far as the kind of music we liked, which was like Nine Inch Nails and more industrial stuff. And this band called the Clay People that are from Albany, New York. And so we decided to start trying to make this kind of music, sort of recording the guitars, cutting them up, and doing other weird shit to it. So that was around 2003, 2002. And that's when we started the Ray Gun Girls. It was much more goth and industrial back then because it was much more about programmed beats and that kind of thing. And then later on, I started adding more real drums instead to it, and it became much more metal then. But
you said
yeah.
that the Ray Gun Girls went down to Florida. So was this on like a tour of some sort, on run of shows, or?
Yeah, we did a small tour down to Florida once with our pals, a heavy metal band called Pale Horse from New York, from Brooklyn. We all went down to Florida, and that was a lot of fun. That's where we got signed to Killzone Records down in Florida. And that was right at the end of the record industry as MP3s were starting to come up. So that was a failure, but it was still fun. Yeah, when you're on tour, that's sort of where you discover who can hack it on the road and who can't, kind of thing. So
you said you stayed at like an orgy house or something in Florida.
So those were the days of MySpace, actually. So we used MySpace to try to find places to stay instead of just staying at hotels and using up money.
Sure.
And this one promoter said, "Yeah, I've got this place. Plenty of room for both bands. No problem." So we got the address and we get down there after the show. We drive over to the place, and the front of it looked unkempt. The neighborhood felt kind of sketchy. But we walk in, and as soon as we open the door, it's kind of dark. We walk around the corner. We see a living room with couches everywhere, like lots of couches, and a big screen TV.
And a normal number of couches for
this is looking kind of weird. And then we walk a little further, and you start walking past this like really small, like 10 by 10 bedroom, another 10 by 10 bedroom, and another one. And with just a mattress on the floor. It's no real bed, just a mattress on the floor. And then panties stapled all along the wall and a bar at the end of the hallway. It's like, this is weird. And then the lady started telling us, the promoter lady was telling us, yeah, this is kind of a singles orgy house on other days.
So no one was there. It was like
no one was there, but
it was like an Airbnb before Airbnb. They were just like, all right, tonight it's a band, but tomorrow it's orgy.
Tonight it's free, it's open, it's supposedly clean.
Did you guys had to sleep on one of those beds?
Well, that was the question. Who's going to sleep on the beds? And of course, nobody raised their hand. So no, I have some crazy people in my band, and there's some crazy people in the other band. They're like, whatever.
Sure,
but I slept on the couch, kind of sitting up, and some of us slept on the floor.
How old were you at this point?
Let's see, 2000 is 20 years ago. So yeah, late 20s, like 29, 28, something like that.
Yeah, I could have easily done that in my early 20s. Late 20s, yeah. I think I would have been like, oh, come on, where's the hotel?
Man, that's part of rock and roll, you know?
Yeah. Too old for that kind of shit now. I feel like I'm not sleeping on the floor. I'm not sleeping in some orgy mattress on the floor.
Now I am in my 40s. I got sleep apnea. I got to carry around a machine. Sleeping in a chair just isn't happening anymore.
Right.
After drinking for hours and playing a half-hour set and setting up and breaking down, yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah. All right, so the Ray Gun Girls turned into a one-man show at some point.
So
And
yeah.
then at what point did the one-man show just turn into Titanosaur?
Yeah, so in 2009, unfortunately, I had my third heart surgery, and so can't play live anymore. Theoretically, it's way too much stress. So that's when I started as a one-man band, and then Titanosaur started in about 2017 as a one-man thing. A friend of mine who played with the Ray Gun Girls for a bit, a drummer. I'm trying to get him to play drums with us, with me, me and the dinosaur here, to play with me. But he's also a little older, and he's got like 3 jobs or something. I don't know. So he's really busy. But that'd be nice to have a live drummer rather than having to program the drums. So eventually, maybe for the next album, see what happens.
How did you learn how to do all this stuff on your own? I mean, the drum, it's one thing to just know how to play guitar and sing or whatever, but like the bass, the drums, the whatever else you're adding into it, like just computer skills or just a very talented musician in all sorts of ways, or how'd you figure that out?
I'm a wannabe drummer. I play the air drums very well. I'm a master air drummer. Thank you very much. But yeah, no, I just taught myself. I've been using, and people are usually surprised about the quality I get, but I use GarageBand. I've been using GarageBand since.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds great, and that's kind of been the other surprising things about all these one man projects that I've had on here too, is that like they'll sound fantastic. Like I'm not really like the best judge of sound quality for things, but like if you just lined all these bands up and I listened to them, I wouldn't be able to tell you who was a home recording or a studio recording or one person or 10 people or anything. I wouldn't tell a difference.
Yeah. I can, but
yeah.
No, I mean, yeah. So I back in 2009 when I found out that I couldn't play live anymore, that's when I started teaching myself how to do this stuff, because I was like, I got to play music. I can't not play music. I got to figure out how to do this. So that's when I started, and yeah, just using tutorials, YouTube tutorials, I figured out a good combination of the right plugins, the right microphone, the right setup to get the right sound. So yeah, a lot of trial and error. There are quite a few Ray Gun Girls albums that I'm not happy with how they sound now. But yeah, you got to kind of go through that to be able to get to a nice spot. So
the drums are tricky. When I was like, in high school or middle school or whatever, like I wanted to play drums and, in band or whatever. And I was terrible at it. So they put me on trombone. And then like years down the road, I'm like, I mean, I play guitar, obviously I have guitars here and stuff, and I play a little, but I always wanted to be the drummer for some reason. And like you said, like great air drummer. I feel like, I can probably figure this out. I think I listen to enough music. I can tap my fingers pretty good on the table. I could probably be all right. And my buddy had a drum set. I'm terrible. Just fucking. I mean, not even close. And I was like, oh boy, that tapping on the table thing does not translate to a drum set, I guess.
Well, one of the things that we went through with the Ray Gun Girls was because Jamie was my friend who was my partner in the Ray Gun Girls at the beginning. He was a drummer. And so one of the things that we sort of clashed with was, all right, does it have to sound like a drummer or does it have to sound good? Because I might want to put like a triplet on the snare here and the hi-hat, which would be physically impossible, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what I do here with Titanosaur. I try to keep it somewhat real, but if it sounds good to put a kick drum right in this spot, then that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I agree. And I've always thought like the part of like recording music and kind of like moving stuff around in the Pro Tools and all that kind of stuff, like that sounds really interesting to me. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not a drummer. So I'm like, if I could figure out how to like program the drums, just like you said, though, like I could make, not just double bass, I can put triple bass in there and I can make this really fast and heavy. And most people that are like musicians would be like, you can't do that, but in my head, I'm like, it'll sound amazing though,
Yeah. You got to be able to get past that, to cross that line. Once you cross that line, there's no going back. Everybody's like this drummer Doc, he was listening to some of the tracks, and he was saying, "Yeah, I can't play that because that's not
That's not a real
physically possible. It sounded a lot better over this." And I played it for other people, and they're saying the same thing. I'm like, "Hey, man, whatever, whatever works."
Yeah. But that's another thing though, is that like why aren't there more, I mean, maybe there is, maybe I just don't know about it, but why isn't there more like computer made like metal where it's like doing these impossible things? Or does that already exist? I mean, you know what I mean? Like just having like insane amounts of this like drum stuff that's not physically possible, or this super fast or intricate guitar parts that's not physically possible, but you did it because you have computer skills. Like, is that a thing? Is that a real thing already?
Well, in the industrial scene, I think it definitely is. I wouldn't be able to pick out anything in particular. I haven't. I'm a huge Fear Factory fan, but I haven't actually listened, like picking that kind of stuff out. But I know that some of their albums are programmed drums, and then some of them are Gene Hoglan, who's freaking amazing. So yeah, there's that. But in the industrial scene, yeah, you get tons of the programming impossible guitar parts. I used to think that a lot of the KMFDM songs were impossible to play, but then I saw them live, and he was able to play them live, so I guess not. But
Yeah.
I'm sure it's out
Well,
there.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like maybe it'd be a good idea or a really terrible idea. I mean, so there's plenty of purists out there that are like, don't use the computer, you got to play your instrument, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, maybe it's just this new genre of music that's just waiting to be created on a computer.
Well, no, unfortunately, I don't. Not unfortunately, but I think it has been created in the industrial scene. I'm still in that scene a little bit. I just haven't really been paying attention for the past 2 years, busy with Titanosaur and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's. I mean, like in the there's a weird crossover in genres. The doom side of stoner metal crosses over a lot into the industrial side of things. Like
Really?
yeah.
I feel like doom kind of crosses over into a lot of things depending on where the listener sits. I mean, for you, they cross over into industrial. For me, they cross into stoner, and for other people, they cross into heavy metal. And just maybe it depends where you're sitting.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I find it funny that I'm in these goth Facebook groups, and they're talking about bands that I saw in the stoner metal groups. I'm like, all right, whatever, but it's just weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get a lot of the noise stuff, which I'm not into. Deals with like chopping up guitars and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't get into the noise stuff too much either, but yeah. I mean, maybe that's why I don't know if it exists or not, because I don't listen to the right stuff, I suppose.
The right stuff, yes.
Yeah. All right, let's check out the mountain so people know what we're chatting about here.
Nice. Yes.
Do we know when the beginning happened? Have we seen it all before?
All right. Do you want to tell us about the video for the mountain?
Yeah, I I had a whole storyline and everything figured out for this song for the video, but I lost steam. We were supposed to film in one spot, and we ended up having to film in a different spot, and I didn't get all the shots I wanted, and so I ended up having to figure out something else. So what I ended up doing was actually the music video is actually me playing live, so it's sort of a practice for this live stream event that I'm going to be doing on release date of Absence of Universe. So it's actually live. It's a little different version than the studio version. But that's the special thing about this song, The Mountain.
Cool.
Oh, the other thing is I keep forgetting about this part. I always write in 4/4 because I never wanted to try to do anything different. But this song and another one on the new album are both in different time signatures that I've never done before. So for me, that's a big step. I don't remember if this is one is in 5/4, the other one's in 3/4. I don't remember which one this is.
I barely know what that means, but I'm sure most of my listeners will appreciate it.
I don't know. For some reason, it made it heavier.
Yeah,
that's all that matters.
So this was like the third or fourth single off of this new album that you released?
Yeah, this is the third single. The first one was Conspiracy, and then had We're All Waiting, and then this one. Lots of people helped me figure out the order of releasing stuff. My friend George, who I spoke about before, my like a brother, he helps me out with songwriting and sometimes lyrics and order of songs and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, start off with Conspiracy, which was very much influenced by Sepultura, specifically the Roots album, and then We're All Waiting. It's just funny how it worked out this way. That one's really heavily influenced by Ministry, specifically the song "The Light Pours Out of Me," which I just about 2 years ago found out that that's actually a cover song. But I really love their version of it, and that's sort of my little homage to that, I guess. So it's a lot more punk. Originally I recorded it for the Ray Gun Girls, so as much I had like synth keyboards and a little bit of a programmed drum in the back, and I changed that around for Titanosaur. And then this one, The Mountain, which is really just influenced by the time signature, because I couldn't think of anything else at that speed with that time signature. It just came out that way. So nice and heavy.
You mentioned something about doing the live stream when the album comes out, and for you who can't perform at a venue or something, I wonder if that's like kind of the next thing in music for a lot of people. Is obviously with the pandemic and stuff, like a lot of people went there, but for you too, just being not able to do venues the way that most like touring bands would or whatever, like I wonder what kind of market there is for, like, just really exploring that and seeing where that can take the music and album sales and all sorts of stuff because of that, ticket sales or whatever it is,
Right. Yeah. This is a total out of left field for me trying to do this thing. I've avoided it as long as I could, because I'm a one-man guy, so it's not going to be live. And it's going to be pre-recorded, but I'm actually playing the stuff at the time live, so there's no editing or anything like that. So I'm scared.
Did you see the ones that Devin Townsend did over the course of the pandemic?
Yeah, watched Devin Townsend, watched Sepultura did a few for their album that they had put out.
Devin's was really interesting because he's standing there by himself, at least the one that I watched. He's standing there by himself and he's playing different tracks, and it was really way more interesting than I expected it to be.
Well, so he's a freaking genius. Not only is he playing the tracks, but he's also pushing buttons to change the camera angle. He's got 5 different cameras all around, and he's pushing the buttons for that while he's singing or playing. It's insane.
Yeah,
that guy's insane. I once watched him do one of these things where they filmed him recording, and he had like an hour and a half to show how to use this program while he was recording a song. And I watched that whole thing. It was like mesmerizing. It's like,
Yeah.
I could do this, but I haven't done it because I feel like this is boring, but I watched it. So
yeah, that is an interesting part too, is that like I'll watch a video of a person like, you know, woodworking, or I'll watch a video of someone painting a picture or drawing. And I do both of those things. I do some woodworking and painting and drawing and all sorts of stuff. And this was years ago. I used to think that all right, I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to film it, edit it, put it out on Instagram. That's going to be like my thing. And as soon as I started like setting the camera up, and I'm like, who the fuck in their right mind want to watch me do this? Like, it just didn't make any sense. I never really did it. And I still do woodworking and stuff all the time. And I'm like, no one's going to fucking watch this garbage. And then later that night, I'm sitting there watching somebody else do it, you know?
yeah, we're our own worst critics.
Yeah.
As they say.
Yeah, but there's definitely something there for the live streaming and stuff like that for you, I'm sure, because people really got creative over the course of the pandemic with that kind of stuff, but I don't think we've quite figured out what it is that's going to draw people's attention on the computers quite yet. Someone's going to do it even better, and there's going to be more people to kind of like take it and run with it, I think.
Yeah, I've seen a few you know, against a green screen or something like that. So one thing I'm going to be doing with this live stream is a little bit trying to go back to a little bit what bands do on a live stage, which they usually have something projected behind them. So I'm not having something projected behind me, but something sort of like that going on, so that there's more to look at than just my ugly mug. So we'll see how it works. But for me, it was an interesting, or it is an interesting thing to try out, because I haven't played live since 2009, and the way my heart is right now, I could barely get through the 25 minutes that I had set up. So
really,
now I know for sure.
how do you stay in shape and stuff if you can't overwork that heart?
Walking. I do a lot of walking.
Yeah,
a lot of walking, and playing guitar and playing bass. I mean, especially at the speed of some of the stuff that I do. Sometimes
you just have to keep your heart rate under a certain level, or how does that work?
Well, it's not really that I have to keep it under a level. It's that if I get too worked up, then it pounds a lot, and then it starts hurting, and then who knows what's next.
Gotcha. Let's do Real or Fuzzed.
All right.
So I'm going to show you 10 album covers. Some of them are real album covers. Some of them are fuzzed. You tell me which is which. First one, Swollen Balls. Franz Bird in Hand.
I'd have to go with Fuzzed.
This is, in fact, a real album.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Bird in Hand. I mean, look,
not sure what it sounds like, but it is a real one.
If the Swollen Balls were written better, then I'd believe it.
Well, I mean, the Franz Bird in Hand too. It's like they had like some sort of style to Swollen Balls, but then went with like Comic Sans on the.
Well, is the band Swollen Balls, or is the band Franz Bird in Hand?
I'm going to be honest with you. I have no idea.
The quotes make it seem like Franz Bird in Hand is the song name or the album name.
Yeah, maybe. I really have no idea. Old Bill has plenty of friends.
So one of my friends is this photographer. He's a professor at a university, and he collects, I don't remember what they're called, but basically images that are out there in the internet for free. And he collects them, and this looks like one of the ones that he would find. Jesus, like the artwork for the two singles that I have for Conspiracy and for We're All Waiting, I got from him.
Yeah, those are great too, by the way. I like those.
Yeah, he has a lot of stuff like that, and it's a great. He told me use whatever you want, so I do. But this, well, it's got RCA on the bottom. I'll say real.
This is Fuzzed.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
You're 0 for 2. Hotline to Heaven by Jerry Irby.
I feel like I've seen this album in my grandmother's collection.
Oh no.
I mean, it looks like from the 50s, 60s, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'll just go Fuzzed.
This is this is real.
So I'm backwards.
Eternal Guardians of the Black Dragon's Lair, Curse of the Warlock's Dark Potion, Battle at the Princess's Chambers, Chapter 1.
That sounds way too real. And if the pattern is going correctly, then this one would be real.
This one is Fuzzed.
Oh my god. You came up with that? Curse of the Warlock's Dark Potion.
I wanted to make the most obnoxiously long band name and album title with just piling more and more and more and more on it.
That sounds like a Halloween song.
The best nerd shit that I could come up with.
Sounds like a Halloween song. Curse of the Warlock Dark Potion. Battle of Chapter 1.
It just keeps going. I love reading it out loud because it just keeps going. You're like, dude, I get it. Baron Cross, Rock for the King.
I'm gonna say real. Striper wannabes, maybe.
I'm not sure what they sound like, but it is real.
All right.
Little David Wilkins, King of all the taverns.
If this isn't real, it has to be real. Somebody has to make it real. Go back in time and make it real if it's not real.
Yeah, this is real.
Okay.
I would love to know what this sounds like for one, but I would love to be this guy and be like, I finally recorded my album and I want to call it King of all the taverns.
Yeah. Does this guy have, is it one of those high pitched things or is he like bluesy low kind of thing? I want to know.
Yeah. I don't know. This one's called Killer Kyle Will Rock for Protein.
I feel like I've seen this on Twitter. Like I've seen this guy try to be my friend. Staff tech. Yeah, so I'll say real.
This one's Fuzzed.
Okay. That's good. He looks like my friend's brother, actually.
Those arms?
Those arms. He used to be a bodybuilder. He's like,
yeah.
And one of those people who can't fit through the doorway, they got to go in sideways.
Yeah, they kind of like have a waddle to them as they walk.
They can only wear sweatpants.
That's so awesome. Mushroom Eater. I can taste colors.
Jesus Christ. It would make sense that this would be on Relapse. I'll say Fuzzed.
This one's Fuzzed. Yeah.
All right. That's nice work.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget what his name is. Murphy did the artwork. Talented graphic artist. Pizza Death. Slice of Death.
That has to be real.
That is real.
Like that what was that band's name that did the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing? Something of Death. I don't remember.
I don't know.
That's what they remind me of.
Yeah, I should check this one out. It looks like it might be actually good.
Yeah.
Last one. Satan is Real by the Lovin' Brothers.
Now you see, it says Capitol Records in the corner, but the last time I used that kind of logic, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And that kind of looks like the South Park devil there.
Yeah.
I'll go Fuzzed.
This one's real.
Oh my God. I wonder if South Park took that head for their...
Maybe. It does. That's what I think of every time I see it, is that looks like the South Park devil. So that's real or Fuzzed.
Nice.
All right, man. That's all I got for you. I'm looking forward to this album coming out. I think it's a great album. I went back and listened to a bunch of your other music, all great as well. So thanks for being on here and chatting for a little bit.
Lots of fun. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Best of luck.
All right. Thanks, man.
Later.